Chicago drill lyrics that actually happened. A lot of rappers nowadays face criticism for the authenticity of their lyrics and discourage one another from putting on a persona that isn't authentic to their actual life. In other words, to avoid rapping street shit if they aren't from the streets themselves. This is rarely an issue to Chicago drill rappers such as King Von, Lil Durk, and other notable rappers. To a lot of them, the streets came before the music, fuels the music, and can be attributed to the authenticity of the music. In fact, a lot of the lyrics in Chicago drill music are direct calls to the crimes and beefs that had occurred in their real life. In Lil Durk's Should Have Ducked track, a bar stating, "He survived one to his head but it f***ed up his body," may have come across as your usual gun bar, but in reality, Durk was speaking to an actual person. This person being FBG Wooski, a member of the FBG gang that were at odds with the O Block for a long time. Wooski has accumulated a lot of bodies and made a lot of disses that resulted in him being ambushed and shot in the head, which is what Lil Durk was referring to in the bar. What's crazy about the beef is that FBG Wooski was the little brother of well-known BD known as Big Mike, who both grew up in the housing projects that went on to be known as O Block. Wooski, however, became so cool with the GDs in the St. Lawrence area, most notably FBG Duck. Wooski was forced out of his home around O Block as he was too wild and unpredictable to be left alone. The protection from his older brother wasn't enough anymore to assure his safety in the area. The decision to be casted out of an area was cemented after Wooski became the main culprit for the murder of a BD named Reezy, who got into it with a group of dudes from the STL/EBT set. After being casted out, he was actually taken in by that same set and repped their gang ever since. Wooski would go on to beef with his former neighbors in the Black Disciples and supposedly killed an O Block member by the name of Platoon, which resulted in King Von to kill Wooski's cousin Modell in retaliation. The beef between King Von and Wooski became very well known as they would often go at one another on social media. Big Mike, the brother of Wooski, was still cool with King Von and even worked together to get at a guy by the name of Malcolm Stuckey for mean mugging Von. They killed him outside of a party and injured a couple of others. Later, they would be arrested for this crime and possibly sentenced for around 100 years in prison for the violence. At first, Big Mike decided to rat on King Von by claiming that King Von was the main shooter and that he had no real involvement in the murder. Between that original statement and the trial, Big Mike came to change his mind on making the statement and decided to stay quiet and ultimately take the fall for the murder, allowing King Von to beat the case. This meant that Mike was left to rot in prison. We believe that O Block members caught wind of Big Mike's statements and made it so that he wouldn't be able to come back home even if he had beaten the case. Going to prison was probably the smartest choice for the dude. Despite his brother being at odds with the gang and incarcerated, Wooski still decided to go to war with O Block and supposedly killed a member by the name of HK outside of the housing projects. On the Computer's remix, he himself raps about the murder of a bunch of BDs and how he is supposed to be the culprit. Of course, the BDs and O Block in particular would not be too keen on this and was once again out for blood. They would go on to kill Dusky the Man and at his funeral caught Wooski lacking outside. They then shot him in the head, causing him to have severe brain damage. Durk's connection to all of this is through his sword brother King Von and the rest of O Block. Earlier in the same track, he also spoke on the death of another one of his ops, FBG Duck, another rapper who was at odds with Lil Durk and the rest of the O Block. The bar being, "I told my PO through the gate that I get high as f***. She asked me how high do I get? I said high as a duck. That's what I call." This was a call to how FBG Duck was shot and killed for being in the beef. Duck was killed in 2020 after dropping a diss track named Dead Bodies where he disrespected the dead friends of his ops. FBG Duck was no stranger to dissing people in his raps and often found ways to weave in a diss no matter the track. In his track Exposing Me remix, he said, "Waldo ain't get to finish his status. He was on the internet laughing, capping, then got caught without it." This being a call to the murder of a man known as 600 Waldo after his friend Dusky the Mad was murdered the day before. 600 Waldo was killed on 63rd, the border between O Block and 600. Waldo was supposedly there when Dusky died and was believed to have part in it. Some also believe that he was on the internet disking Dusky prior to his death and was punished for the action quickly. In the same track, he also said, "Let off 23, then 7 more. That's how I come for bro. T-Roy ain't get shot inside his head, but he ain't making it though." The first line about his brother Brick, who was shot and killed in 2017 after he was taunting O Block members, and the fact that he was planning to get revenge for his brother's murder. The code for his brother being 30, which is 23 plus 7. The second line was about an op by the name of T-Roy, who was a respected shooter for O Block and found himself at the wrong place at the wrong time and was shot by his target on 71st and died along with other individuals who had been shot in the process. The brother of T-Roy, HK, would go on a murder spree in the time after T-Roy's death, killing TB, supposedly being one to kill FBG Brick and anyone else affiliated with the ops. By the end of 2017, HK was caught in a drive-by and died. On King Von and G Herbo's song On Yo Ass, Von says, "I've been lurking so long, ran out of gas. I saw him at a store, but I ain't have my mask. This is the last time that the ops getting a pass." This bar was actually a callback to when King Von happened to see Wooski at a store around 63rd, but couldn't do anything about it because he wasn't properly disguised and ready to get back for his fallen brother. Tweets between the two went on to confirm this interaction between the two because Von stated that it didn't count, while Wooski believed Von was too scared to walk up to him once he saw him in the store. We can assume both have the reasons to act hard on the internet, but King Von was most likely trying to not move recklessly and find himself in jail. Like the altercation with his friend Big Mike, he probably wants to leave as little evidence as possible for police to indict him with. King Von was never scared to drop bars on his ops. Even his track Exposing Me, he said, "I swore I'd kill her, broke her back," referring to the murder of Jakira Barnes, aka K.I., who was a notorious female assassin in Chicago. K.I. was the supposed murderer of O.D. Perry, the namesake of O-Block. Getting the 17-year-old out of commission would be a big deal for the gangs in the area, and King Von being the one to get her made him even more notorious in the streets. King Von has made countless songs about his time in the streets and has even made a name for himself for being so descriptive and inventive with his tales. Songs like Crazy Story went incredibly viral in 2020 and shot him and the idea of 63rd to mainstream media. The world had a peek on the war in Chicago through King Von's eyes and haven't seen any artist as transparent as him since. Although there are a lot of other examples of Chicago drill that can be linked to real life events, it is largely becoming less widespread as beefs in other areas of the world like London and Jacksonville took up the media's attention. It seems like a lot of Chicago artists are moving beyond a lot of the gang beef publicly and avoiding bringing that energy back into their music in favor of a better and longer lasting music career. We've seen this time and time again, what happens when names are mentioned in rap and when beef spills out into real life. King Von, for example, was on the up and up before his tragic end due to a beef with Quando Rondo and his people.